Okay, I'll call the Tuesday, May 8th, 2018 regular board meeting to order. I have a roll call, please.
Mr. Estheimer?
Present.
Mr. Freitas?
Here.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Koopser?
Here.
Ms. Mossop?
Present.
Dr. Pomponio?
Here.
Mr. Craig?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission statement is Learning for Life. Vision statement is Southgate Community Schools, the best choice for students and parents. Do we have any revisions to the agenda tonight? Okay, seeing nobody wanting to revise the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
We have a motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Dr. Pomponio. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have an agenda. Okay, so we're on to public comment here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask anybody who wants to speak at public comment, raise your hand, you'll be recognized by the chair, and then you can come up to the podium. So, does anybody want to speak at public comment tonight? Okay, thank you very much. And then we're on to presentations. School improvement reports from Asher and Beacon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, you guys brought copies. That was so sweet. I made copies for them. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You know, I want
Yours are bigger.
I want
Maybe yours
your
are
copy.
better.
I
can
Maybe you
see it
changed
better,
them. But that was very, very nice.
Thank you, Joe. It was a good try, Joe, but these are a lot better.
Hey, Jen, how are you? She printed it right from there.
Yours are bigger, better.
Yeah, sure.
We'll share. We'll share.
Okay, we can share.
Thank you, my dear.
Thank you. Sorry.
Good job.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh.
There's no way to get that.
Good evening. I'm Len Stamborski. I'm the Director of Adult and Community Education for Southgate Community Schools and the Asher School. And I'm going to get started with our goals. Where do we want to be? Number one of our goals for this year was to increase the graduation rate 25% each year. And through that, by improving student attendance and retention, increasing student growth in reading and mathematics. Second goal was to improve the Asher School culture by changing the perception of Asher students and the adult and community education programs, the perception of the students and the school and the community and the surrounding communities. Number three was to improve the instructional capacity of the Asher staff through continued and more effective use of the 5D plus by staff and the administration. And number four, to increase the GED high school equivalency success rate by 25% each year, improving the instructional model to better meet student needs. And number five, provide students seamless transitions to post-secondary career training programs, which include college programs as well. On the next couple of pages, I'll go in a little bit more detail. Where are we now? We have approximately 118 high school students between the ages of 16 and 22 years old. We enrolled more than that, but at this time we have 118. 60 are on track to graduate in June. We have enrolled over 600 adult students in our adult basic education, GED, and high school completion programs. 23 have earned a GED as of yesterday. 15 have passed 3 parts. 10 have passed 2 parts. 11 have passed 1 part of the 4-part test. We have a goal of 45 GED graduates by the graduation on June 12th. We have over 200 adult ESL students. They all don't come at the same time. We have three classes currently in operation. We had almost 1,000, give or take, 10 or 20 students in the community education and leisure class program. That program was also nominated, well, we presented, it was recognized as one of the best programs in the state. We presented at the McKay Conference back in October. Sarah Hurley, who is the coordinator of that program, was named the Trailblazer of the Year for community education. We have one of our big partnerships is a requirement through our Workforce Investment Opportunity Act grant is through the Downriver Community Council and the Michigan Works. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get through this. We have a new partnership, as you may have heard previous weeks, with the Graduation Alliance, and some of the progress that's contributing towards our goals is the increased levels of state and federal adult education WIOA money that we've been receiving the last few years. Evidence of progress, what are we doing to making a difference? One of the things that we're most happy with at this point is, although we're enrolling less students in the alternative ed program, we're graduating more of them. We've recognized that we couldn't take everybody who comes there. It wasn't a good fit necessarily. We have a process, a rubric that we use to interview students for acceptance into the program. And we're a little bit more selective than we have been in the past. It's not a good fit for everybody, and some students just don't work out there. But we try to make sure that students that are coming now are really serious and they have a good chance to really finish, to complete their diploma. And we work with them too. We follow the cohorts, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get moving here. GED gains, our goal is 45 full GED graduates by June. We may actually have a little bit more than that, and that's basically 45 since January. We just got it going to the point where it's working really well for us right now. We're increasing enrollment in the ABE, GED, and ESL programs. We're enrolling students right through June. There's a different requirement for adult ed. There's no count days. So the more we enroll and the more we pre-test and post-test, and every student that passes a part of the GED test or raises their EFL, their educational foundational learning, think of it as a grade. If they can raise it 1, we get funded for that student. So there's this open door funding policy. We can keep it going right up until the end of June and try to capture as much of that funding as possible. So we're enrolling students every week, about 10 a week. And again, they may not stay real long. Some may only be there for a month or 2 months, but they get their GED, they're gone. We try to transition them somewhere else. We have a lot stronger community partnerships, Michigan Works, DCC, SEMCA, MRS, Michigan Rehabilitative Services. The evidence of the progress, too, is the Asher students and the building culture. And I don't have anything to gauge it against as much as I have the teachers and the staff members who have been around before, and some of the students who have been there for a while, to say how much more comfortable it is. We haven't had any fights in 2 years. We don't suspend very many students. We don't have a whole lot of drama, and we do have a challenging group of students to work with, but through a lot of the PD we've had in the restorative practices and the buy-in by the staff, we haven't had as many of the, we haven't had a whole lot of fighting or carrying on this year or last year. Strategies, what have you been doing? We have an Asher Pride program, PRIDE. Jen Geis and Allison Zanetti are going to talk about that. I think it's made a big, significant difference in the culture of the building, and that's why I brought them along, invited them to present that program. Restorative Practices, we contracted with Black Family Development. They came in and did 3 days of community circles and restorative practices with the entire district staff, whoever wanted to attend. Not as many people as I would have liked attended, but we had a good proportion, or a good number of Asher people there. And we went through that training. It had quite an impact on everybody. GED instructional coaching for teachers. We have an instructional coach who is there in the evenings, some evenings through the course of the week, making a significant impact. We're focusing on differentiated instruction, and that's a different model we're trying to push with the teachers. Instead of having the adult ed students come in and sit for the entire semester, the goal is to get them in, find out what they need to pass the GED test, provide that instruction, and get them to the testing center, and then transition them to some sort of a job training program as quickly as possible. And that's starting to pick up a little momentum right now, so we're real happy with that. The strategies, 5D observations and evaluations, is working. We're looking forward to just getting better and better at that. I think it's a great thing. And we also have some on-site workforce readiness training. We recently hired a workforce readiness coordinator in the evening to help with that transition, which is a requirement for some of the grants that we received this year. So some of these things that I've been talking about, especially on the adult ed component, that we've done recently are requirements for the grant. Accountability index, how are we addressing the targets? The enrollment rubric. The social worker, one of the advisors, and myself, we interview the parent, guardian, and the student. We go through the rubric, we score, and we try to get a feel for if the student's going to be successful. And we talk about it afterwards, and it's been working for several years. It was there before I got there. We use it exclusively now to determine whether or not the student's going to be a good fit. Sometimes students come one semester, they don't seem to do real well during the interview process, and we invite them back the next semester. And we've had several students come back, maybe a little bit older, a little bit more mature, and maybe a little bit more ready to enroll, and that's been working out pretty well for us. We're tracking the high school students in their graduation cohort. Everybody's on a 4-, 5-, or 6-year cohort. If we can't get them to graduate within 6 years, it counts against us, so we're working hard to transition them to a GED program. We're encouraging more students, and as I said, to the GED transition. If they're 22, 23, 25, 29 years old, and you need 2 years of high school to get your diploma, but we might be able to get you your GED in 6 months or a year, we're going to encourage you to take the GED test. It's accepted at 98% of the universities in this country, and all of the employers. I don't know of any employers that are turning, at least around here, that are turning down GED graduates. We have Asher Chats, which are really teacher-led professional learning communities. They're volunteer. The teachers meet together. It's not administrative-led. It's led by the teachers, and they discuss things. I think that's had a tremendous impact as well. We have twice-monthly trips to DDC, Michigan Works office. We hire their buses. It's part of the grant. They pick up the students, and this has been going on all year long. We are collaborating with the DDC, MWA, Michigan Rehabilitative Services, SEMCA, Wayne County Community Action Network, College Action Network, and the Wayne State TRIO program for community education and improved post-secondary career services. We spend a lot of time building the new partnerships up, again, part of the grant money that we receive. Progress towards the goals. The staff have clear expectations. The implementation of 5D Plus and professional development for the Asher staff has gone a long way. We are improving our marketing strategies. One of the big pushes we've realized, it's tougher and tougher to pick up students, especially the alternative ed students. Most of the districts are trying to keep them students to themselves now. However, the adult ed students, we are finding that as other districts shrink or close, Detroit Public Schools program is shrinking. Hazel Park closed, Wayne Westland closed. Their adult ed programs are in the process of it. There are plenty of adult ed students out there, so we're being a little bit more aggressive with that. We send out over 120,000 mailers twice a year, and we're looking at some other methods of getting the word out to the various surrounding communities. And the increased community partnerships and the opportunities for the students and Asher graduates. We are still open. We invite Asher graduates to come back. Once you graduate from Asher, you're invited to come back and take advantage of the job placement, workforce readiness skill training that's available for them. What changes may be necessary for next year? We're still tweaking the schedule. There will be some additional schedule changes, some subsequent staffing changes as well. We plan to offer additional ABE, GED, and English second language adult education classes. There will be some changes to the Edgenuity virtual school platform. I didn't mention much about the virtual school platform. Last year there were 33 students. It was not very successful. The district we've had some administrative discussions about moving forward with it. It operates out of Asher. It wasn't working well, and this year I think we're down to like 11 students in the virtual program. In place of that, at least this year, maybe not to replace it, but at least this program popped up back in January, the Graduation Alliance program, and we have been referring some students. It's not for everybody, but we've been referring some students there. I think we're somewhere around 50 or 60 students in Grad Alliance right now. we're looking at increasing marketing outside of the district. We're really focusing on outside district students for that program, and students who haven't worked out well in the Asher program. And again, we're increasing collaboration with our community partners. I'm going to have Jen and Allison talk about the Asher Pride program in just a second. Success stories, the expansion of the adult ed program, the number of graduates, it's a very positive thing. The college and career training opportunities available to the Asher graduates through MWA, TRIO, and the American Red Cross, which is still on site, providing CNA training. The Graduation Alliance, we have 3 graduates from there this year, and just since January. We've had a tremendous upgrade in technology and infrastructure at Asher, the parking lot, the roof, the community garden. There's a new sign hopefully going in soon. And more importantly, the success story I like to highlight the most is the Asher students themselves, the positive attitude that they bring. It's really quite a joy to be working with them. We're getting to know the students real well, and it's a very positive environment. I think for folks who have walked through there have noticed that. I'd like to have Allison and Jen talk about the Asher Pride program, which has been a big contributor to the change in culture. Yeah.
The pride for us. Thank you, whatever it is in your computer. Yeah.
A little bit shorter. While Len's getting this set up for us, I'm Jennifer Geis, and this is Allison Zanetti. And what we're going to talk about is the Pride program, which came out of what we call Asher Chat. And Asher Chat was really a need that the teachers saw in the building and wanted to create our own PLCs. We don't have prep time in a traditional sense, and so for us it was a way where a couple times a month we would volunteer and meet and have discussions about ways that we as a staff, and anybody's welcome, security can come, and anybody is welcome to come to these meetings, secretarial staff, advising staff. And so during these conversations, one of the things that we really felt strongly about was that we needed some sort of behavioral rubric that would address the needs of the Asher staff. And so this all came from through the Asher Chats. So what does Pride stand for? It's a little bit of a play on the Asher Panther Pride. A little bit cheesy, but it was fun. And so Pride for us is our goal for our students is that we hope that they will find pride in their school, the community at large, and more importantly for some of our students in themselves. And we're seeing some great results with this Pride program that started just in mid-February is when we started rolling it out. So Pride standing for personal responsibility, respect, integrity, determination, and empathy.
And we've given you a copy of our rubric, and we designed this to meet Asher's needs. And you'll notice it looks similar to the PBIS rubrics that you've seen for other schools, but we wanted to really pick items that would be meaningful for our students and try to have a variety of topics. You'll notice that we included classroom behavior, hallways, and the public areas. And all of those things are positive. I think sometimes our previous behavioral guidelines were very punitive. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And we really wanted to have something to show this is how we behave. This is our value system at Asher. And this value system will work for you for your entire life.
Okay, so what's the purpose of Pride? It's a common value system, common expectations for students and staff, and a common language. It's been a very building, unifying experience. Along with, again, anybody in the staff can use it and we hand out kind of like the PBIS tickets that you hand out to students that are doing something that's helpful or showing determination or whatever it may be, and anybody in the building can hand them out. Secretary of Security, advising staff, Mr. Zamborski, the teachers, that we're all doing that.
So this next slide here talks about how it's helped staff members, and then we go on to how it's helped the Asher students. And it really overlaps, but as a teacher, it's allowed me to have a language with my students that they hear in all of the classrooms, that they hear in the hallway, that they hear from Mr. Samborski. And it's really built a positive community. Just the other day, we had a conversation about determination, the D in pride. That was what we've been focusing on over this last few weeks. And how do we work as determined individuals? And I could show examples in my life, ways I've failed and what I do to increase my determination. And we had a really powerful conversation as a community circle. And students have never talked to me in that way before, and talking about what they do to be determined and what's going to get them to June and to get them to the end of the semester. And I was very impressed by it. And so having that language was just kind of classroom transforming for me. It's allowed me to develop some really great relationships with students as well. And having a way to manage behavior when they don't meet that pride standard. So the next slide there is about the Escher students, and we didn't want this to just be something that was just for our school. I mean, it was something that would apply to them as they left, in a career, and as life skills. So being personally responsible, having integrity, being a respectful individual, those are all good values for all people.
Okay, so what has the strategy done for our school? One thing that we're doing is that each month in the classrooms, we are reviewing the pride topics, talking about what does respect look like, what does it look like here, what does it look like outside of school, what does determination look like. Again, that was last week's conversation. And that is every month. Along with that, we've created Asher Student of the Month. We have a monthly Pride Awards ceremony where they're being given, their tickets are being pulled, and staff members, Dave has secured lots of donations for us, and our advising staff, where when their tickets pulled or they're being recognized as Student of the Month, they might get a gas card or
a Slurpee.
A Slurpee, yes, $5 off at Taco Bell, whatever is something that would be useful to our students. That's all been donated. It's also fun to sit in those assemblies with these students who haven't necessarily had positive experiences and have them applauding each other and their successes in class. And so that's helping to, with the all-school assemblies once a month, helping to build the community in a better way. It's also then led to what we're calling Asher Beautification, where we've been able to order some new furniture. So thank you for that, and the things that, just small things to make the building look nice. Again, our courtyard, and I keep looking at Dave, our courtyard has been updated, and students are helping us move furniture out of classrooms and just doing nice things, asking us if they can come help us on their lunch hours. What do you need done? I'll help you move that and do that. It's created a really nice classroom or community within our building.
And along with that, we have some real good positive marketing as well. We have Asher Pride t-shirts. We started just with the staff, and now the students said, how can we get an Asher Pride t-shirt? And so we've made a big order there for Asher Pride t-shirts. We have given you the bumper stickers, and at one of the Asher Pride monthly meetings, a student got a sticker, and he right away pulled it off and he put it on his shirt, and he just had this like incredible joy about him that he got this sticker. And it was something really unique. We do have a new motto as well, the Transforming Lives for a Better Future. We had two teachers, Mark Hansen and Abby Genig, who worked along that. So we have some handouts that we've given you that really help to show that behavioral rubric. But not just that, the behavioral flow chart And that it was created by our social worker, Charlotte Ross, and by our teacher consultant, Jessica Brancheau. They worked on what happens when a student doesn't follow the rubric, and if they have self-destructive behavior or disruptive behavior or volatile behavior. So we as teachers all know exactly what to do. We've created this Asher School Think Sheet so that it gives the students an opportunity to think about their behavior and think about what they did, what happened kind of before, during, after, how they can change their behavior. And that really relates to those restorative practices, so they can get some thoughts about how do I change my behavior for the future. And this is just a work in progress. Like we just started it a few months ago. We worked on it quite a bit through Asher Chat, but we finally rolled it out with the students in January, and we've seen a really great positive change to the classroom and school community. And so we're really hoping that we have some great new ideas for next year, and that we'll be able to find some more successes next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the
Questions
board?
or anything like that?
No? Mr. Green.
Mr. Samborski, first of all, I'd like to congratulate the staff in this program for all the successes. I can speak from experience as somebody who taught there. The transformation of something has been incredible. Mr. Samborski has always been very open, meeting with me personally as the Asher rep, and to make this transformation and to see the progress, I commend you. I can also tell you that change isn't easy for those of us who are teachers, and I can speak for the two ladies. I had the pleasure of working with them for years. They are wonderful teachers, and to be part of this is absolutely incredible that they're still around Asher during this transformation process. I do have one question, though, just out of curiosity, Mr. Samborski. The virtual school platform, is there? Do you have a reason or a thinking why? Was it just not a good fit for us? Do you think the program was wrong? I mean, is there a reason you think that wasn't exactly successful for our students?
I think there's some long history that was in place or in play long before I got there. I'm not certain. I began taking a look at it and noticing that students were not being successful. We were also using another platform, Apex platform. We also had the Edgenuity platform. And so at least this year, the good news was that we gained enough FTEs last year to cover the cost of the Apex. This year we dropped the Apex platform, saved some money because we could use the Edgenuity platform. But that platform's not working as well, and I think we've had some administrative discussion about how can we move forward and establish, if we're going to have a virtual program, how can we do it much better than the current method that we had, which was not run as effectively as we were able to do it. It was just one person was responsible for the whole thing. I think that was way too much responsibility for that person, and there just seemed to be a lot of things I couldn't get to the bottom of very quickly. And this year, it's even, we had 33 last year, we're down to 13 this year, 13 students. Very few of them are passing. As compared to the Grad Alliance program, there's a lot of follow-up. There's meetups at the Southfield Public Library once a week. If you're in Grad Alliance, you have to go meet with the academic coach, which is hired through Grad Alliance. There's online 24-hour support. So they have some things in place that make it more successful. And we didn't have those things in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted
Ms.
to
Massa.
thank you so much for your presentation. I was actually so touched, and this is beautiful. Like every part of it, including, like I was really moved by how passionate and so warm and loving, and I can really tell you care about your students. And I was just moved. So it would be a shame for me not to tell you that I could feel your sincerity as a mom, as a social worker, as an educator. This was very nice today to have this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, but you gotta unplug it. See, it's
Okay, well, I don't know how we're going to follow that, but
That's what I was just gonna say.
introducing Jennifer Hill.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Hill. I'm the principal at Beacon Day Treatment. Matthew Lucas, assistant principal at Beacon Day Treatment. I'll give you a little background on Beacon. We service Southgate students as well as 21 other districts for their emotionally impaired children where they have exhausted their continuum of services within the district, and we are their resort, or their last resort, I would hope last resort, that we can get these kids back into their district. So we currently are at 164 students, I believe. We service students K through 12 for severely emotionally impaired children. Our goal in our building is to bring the children in from their existing district, help them, give them the tools for their social emotional needs, and get them back into their regular district within about 18 to 24 months. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes it happens quicker, but that is our goal. I will let Matthew talk to you about the goal on the screen.
Okay, yeah. Like Ms. Hill was alluding to, of course we have rigorous academic goals that we would like to accomplish with reading, writing, and math, but there's also a lot of social and emotional aspects of their day that we really okay. There's a lot that we want to accomplish, and we do that through our social learning program and our positive behavior interventions and supports, or PBIS. So our monthly PBIS meetings and our ongoing social learning training really helps us out with those goals, because without the strong emotional support, we certainly can't focus on the academics without addressing their emotional needs first.
Right. We find that a lot of our students, I'm not moving on to that slide yet, but you can leave it there, have suffered a lot of trauma in their life. And I know that Ms. Pastor and Ms. Thomas and some other people within the district have looked into the trauma, what's the word I'm looking for? The trauma programs that Lincoln Park is using and so forth, and we'd like to look further into that, because we feel that our students' emotional, social needs need to be met before they can even think about academics. So moving on, sorry.
Okay. And one of the unique, can I add to that? One of the unique things that we do is that once the students get off of the bus, everyone is served breakfast right away. And then right after that, they have a 45-minute block of time where we do what we call personal adjustment, or group, if you will. And that's an opportunity for students to get things off their chest, talk to the social workers, talk to their peers, and things like that. Jennifer and I really stay out of the way during that time of the day, because there are certain conversations that are going on in group that are really only for the social worker and their peers. So that really helps us start the day.
And helps them start the day. Okay. So when looking at our language arts, we implemented 2 years ago the NWEA testing in our building. We pre and post test our kids in the fall, and then once again in the spring. Our students are so fluid in and out of our school that anytime a new student walks into our school, we try to do a pre-test, and then we are able to post-test them at the end of the year. So we get to get the information. Sometimes we don't always get the previous test scores from the previous district, and so this gives us our own little personal way to compare if they're doing what we need them to do and we're doing what we need to do. So if you were looking at language arts, this graph actually is coming from the pre-test in October-ish into November, so there's a window of it. And then just now actually we're finishing up the NWEA testing. And as you can see, the majority of our students have made progress in their language arts testing. 7th grade, we've fallen a little bit below the line, and we're not sure why. Matthew and I discussed that earlier this week, and we talked about our middle school kids, especially our 6th and 7th grade students, are the ones that really are fluid in our building. They go back, they try to go back to their building, they come back to our building, they go back, they go back and forth, and it's really difficult. And maybe that's why we're not really sure. We need to look at that. Again, these are brand new scores to us. So it looks like our language arts is going well, with the exception of our 7th grade. And what's interesting is I can't ever pinpoint it on maybe it's our language arts curriculum or our teacher in that area, but that same language arts teacher is a 6th and 7th grade language arts teacher, so that doesn't make sense either. We really have used this NWEA testing, and it's really helped us a lot to determine where our kids are. And if you know anything about MAP testing, it meets the student where they are. So a lot of our students have missed a big gap of their learning due to being out of school a lot for their social emotional needs. And it meets the student where they are and takes them forward. So if they miss a question, it takes them back to another question. If they get that question right, they go off into a different direction. So it really tests their skills where they're at versus handing them a 6th grade test and saying, let's see what you can do. Some of our 6th graders may be functioning at a 4th grade level. So we are really able to figure out what level they are at and move forward from there.
Okay. The next one is math, and you can see that the same kind of pattern is there also with the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. There's some progress, but they seem to lag behind what the rest of the school is doing in general. A lot of times when we look at their behavior and their academics, a lot of times, even at a typical middle school, you may find that the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders get a little bit of squirrely. But here at Beacon, they have the majority of the bus write-ups or the majority of the suspensions and everything like that. And developmentally, those students, they feel like they know everything, but we need to kind of reel them back in. So middle school can be a bit of a challenge, and you can see that the growth is a little bit slower along those grades. So.
The next one is reading. So as you saw, we had language arts. We test reading separately because we feel that that's the core of everything we do in life. So we really need to get a firm handle on where our kids are and where they need to be. Again, with our kids being in and out of school so much in their regular district and sometimes within our school between discipline and hospitalization or family issues that they're moving from one district to another and those kinds of things, our kids miss a lot of school. So we feel that obviously reading and math are our core focuses, or our core focus, but reading really is our pivotal point. So as you can see, looks like 9th grade, again, on the cusp of middle school, has dropped below the line a little bit, but with the rest, we're seeing some good progress. And we'll get into reasons of why we're seeing the math and the reading progress.
Okay, so what change, is that me? Okay, what changes what changes are necessary for 2018 and 2019? Of course, we need to expand our use of PBIS and other data, and we need to allow that data to make more of our decisions. We need to be able to look at our PBIS data and say, okay, what's going on in the middle school? What can we do specifically for the middle school to give them incentives to stay in class more, focus and be engaged in math and reading to get all those scores up? A concerted effort among all staff to decrease suspensions through restorative practices. There are still some staff members that are, I like to describe them as really old school. Things go down in school and they immediately say, hey, they need days. And I'd say, okay, well, rather than suspend him, let's sit down at the table and see if we can make some kind of retribution for what they did. Continue to celebrate student and staff accomplishments on a larger scale. We are a school and we have high standards for academics and behavior. And when we do things like honor roll luncheon and everything like that, you can see that students appreciate having their successes celebrated. We had an honor roll ceremony last week, and we've had several students that have a 3.2 or a 3.3 or a 3.9. So to be able to do that in this educational setting that can be challenging is really good to see. We need to improve our relationship and my health. We need to improve our relationship with the universities to foster like a higher caliber level of training and a higher caliber of staff when we bring in substitute teachers or start to groom young teachers to move into our English or social studies or math positions. We'll need an excuse me, we'll need an art teacher pretty soon. So we want to know what kind of good grapes are on the vine before they fall off the vine. So
can I just piggyback on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have a couple, actually have 4 or 5 staff members retiring this year, and it's very hard on a regular day to find somebody that is, let's say, we have a history teacher retiring. They have to be highly qualified in history as well as EI endorsement, emotionally impaired endorsement, because we do offer a diploma track for our kids. We want them to get a diploma. That's our goal. And the state says we have to have these highly certified teachers, but they also have to have an emotional impairment endorsement as well. So it's really hard to find these teachers. And we were just talking with Eastern. Eastern brings a class in twice a year, and they tour our program. And we asked her about student teachers for next year, and she said usually we have about 20 to place. We have 2. So they have 2 teachers to place out of Eastern alone. So we're getting a little nervous. We try to grow our own. We try to promote that, if our teachers don't, or our program assistants don't have a teaching degree, to go back and try and get those. It's a calling. Not everybody can work at Beacon. I will say that. You really have to have empathy and sympathy, and you really got to be able to leave that, when you need to be able to leave the building and leave the building, because there's a lot of heartache that you see every day. So if we see somebody with a calling that's in one of our PA positions, we really push them to maybe go and get that degree and maybe help us out a little bit on the teaching end.
Okay, thank you. We're also, like I said, we'll need to keep our relationships going with like McTie. We'll talk a little bit about McTie later, MRS, the Guidance Center, Starfish, and so on. And of course, we'll be working very closely with Jill Pastor on our updated safety and security protocols.
So what's going well to help us achieve our goals? We have positive partner relationships with UMS. That is the music department through University of Michigan, where Jill Ross was honored as their Teacher of the Year last year. We talked about that last year. We have a really, hopefully, good relationship with sending districts. We're able to work very closely with them. They're really eager to send their children to us. They're really not always eager to bring them back. So we try to foster that relationship while their students are with us, try to build that, because actually that relationship between the student and the district is damaged, and we have to try, our social workers and Matthew and I and the teachers and everyone involved have to try to repair that relationship with the student and the district, because we want that to be a welcoming thing. We want them to be back in their district. We want them to succeed. So we have increased our collaboration with our staff this year in the high school. We gave common planning hours to our teachers, which has not been the practice in the past, which is really interesting to see them collaborate and work together and work with one another. We have high-achieving teachers who are accelerating at the growth rate for our 5D plus. The implementation of that obviously has helped the entire district. Students are mastering the art of personal and academic goal settings. Every day when they come into group, they have to write a goal for themselves on their point sheet. They have to put down a goal, and it may be as simple as make it through the day. Our students on higher steps have to write an academic goal. Our students on lower steps can choose an academic goal, but most of the time we try to steer them towards the behavior goal so that they can move towards the academics. What's that say? Attentive building
Yeah.
and district administration and school board. So again, we are trying to form our positive relationships. I know when I first got here, I've been here 3 years now, and just so you know, we had a community member in the building today, and he said, "Are you coming back yet next year?" I go, "Absolutely, if they'll have me. I love this place." And he just kind of shook his head because we were having some difficulties today. But we try to foster those relationships as much as we can.
Okay, you may recall that we talked about Gabrielle Pop last year during this presentation. She spent the last 8-9 months in New Zealand studying at a day treatment program down under. So we'll get her back. We'll get her back pretty soon, and then excuse me, she's applied for admittance into a doctoral program.
And she's also coming back with a shiny new ring on her hand, so hopefully she stays around the area.
I hope she has an accent.
I hope she
I want to hear that.
Really? So we try really hard at Beacon because we feel like we kind of shelter our kids. I shouldn't say we shelter our kids, but we are in a sheltered environment. Things that students do at Beacon wouldn't always fly at other schools. So we try to expose them, especially when they're on their way back, to real world situations. Like, you're not going to be able to do this in your home school. And so we do that through different avenues. Michigan Career and Technical Institute, we take our kids every year. It's a grant through MRS. We take our students, usually 11th and 12th graders, but sometimes our 10th graders, to MCTI in Plainwell to show them that there are programs out there that once they have their diploma, they can head there. Some of our kids are not on the track to go to college, but this is a great alternative for them. It's actually, they go away to Plainwell. There's many different programs from welding to cabinetry to medical fields and so forth. And we actually placed, I shouldn't say we placed, 2 of our students were accepted into the program last year, and so when our kids visited this year, they ran into them, and that was pretty exciting. So out of a graduating class of 8 or 10, to have 2, we're pretty proud of that. So Michigan Rehabilitative Services, they come in to our school once a month. They do different job training things with our students. They also do career planning. They also help them find summer jobs. I think we placed 4 to 6 students last year for summer employment through MRS. Career Day, we have a career day once a year, and our students really look forward to that. And it's amazing how you don't think they're going to be interested in something, and you bring in Jeremy Ortiz. He used to be one of our behavior specialists, and he works for Bush's grocery store, and he came in to talk to them about the different opportunities for them once they have their high school diploma. And I would have thought that he would have had no one in his session, but he was packed, and they were very excited that maybe someday they might go work with Jeremy. Coding robots to use in computer classes, that's Ms. DeVore is doing that with her classes. Gleaners, Food Bank came in the first part of the year. I think there were 6 times that they visited Beacon, and they brought in, they were selected students. They came in, they taught them about nutrition, they taught them meal preparation, they brought in the food, they actually helped them cook, they made meals and so forth, which are really good skills for our kids. Kids in Needs and Joanne Fabrics. So we have a different number of things we do for our kids in needs. Obviously, probably most schools, the clothes closet, the food pantry, things of those, of that nature. We also have a partnership with, why is it escaping me? They supply Christmas gifts to our kids that won't get a Christmas gift, and our students go our teachers go shopping with them, they bring them in, and the students are able to come in and pick out one Christmas gift. Joanne Fabrics calls Ms. DeVore about once every 2 months and says, hey, I got all this stuff in here. we can't sell it, we're not selling it, come get it. She takes her truck, she comes in, teachers are able to come in and pick things out, and students are able to pick from what their teachers have selected, so.
I'm going to make a motion that Jennifer Hill continues this, and she has lungs that actually work.
Since I have what?
You have lungs that actually work.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So social learning and PBIS guides our students and our staff. Actually, social learning and PBIS are the backbone of our program. If we don't have those in place and they are not functioning well, our students will not succeed. They shouldn't I say they won't succeed, but it's difficult for them. They need some kind of extrinsic motivator when they first come in, and we like to fold that into extrinsic when they leave. So Matthew does a great job of stocking our point store. As you can see, that must be the March Madness month pictures, and our kids are super excited when he goes to Five Below to get new gifts. They earn points every day, and he puts the gifts out and how many points they need for the gifts. And last week we had one kid change the price tags on them, so we may have to go to barcodes. I don't know. I thought it was pretty entrepreneurish, but apparently.
My lungs work well enough. I got to say this, the Pokemon cards are supposed to be 200 points, not 100. That's all I have to say.
Well, apparently they got them half off. So, but for instance, kids will come in and they have the charge of getting the point store key, and they go down with their class and they'll come in. And last week they came in and I was at the desk and they said, I need the point store key. And I said, you might want to wait till tomorrow because Mr. Lucas has all this stuff in his van and he's out sick today. And they're like, oh, you can have this back. So they wait till he restocks the shelves in there. That ties in real close with PBIS. That's one and the same for us. So just kind of ties in together. Social learning guides are, PBIS committee and the conferences ensure that we are up to date in our practices. We have 2 teachers that are really into the PBIS. They attend every Wayne Risa program that is offered, and they are fantastic to bring that back to our building. They are enthusiastic, and we have some staff that have been there many years, and they're really hard to get to take from social learning to PBIS, even though it's pretty much the same. Just the name is different. So they've been wonderful in trying to bridge that gap with those teachers and PAs. So I did want to talk a little bit about our math scores and our reading scores. We have 1 full-time math interventionist and 1 full-time reading interventionist, and that is kind of our own way of child find. So if a teacher sees that somebody's struggling in reading or they're struggling with math, they take that student to a committee, and the committee decides that maybe they need to be tested by one of our interventionists. They test them, they go through that information and decide, yep, I need to see this student 30 minutes twice a week. And they have these schedules that go, they're nonstop seeing kids. We could use about 4 more of them, but they have been very instrumental on raising our scores. Okay, celebrations. We like to celebrate at Beacon. Twice a year we have bus breakfast. Our students, some of our students are on the bus for 2 hours to get to school. And to have a student without an emotional impairment on a bus for an hour is a lot. To have one on the bus for 2 hours is crazy. So we do incentives with all of our buses, and if you don't have bus write-ups, you're invited to a bus breakfast. The bus drivers come in off the bus, they sit down and they have breakfast with their students that have had good rides to school. You can always, if you don't make the first one, you can always make the second one, so we use it as an incentive. Thanksgiving feast, we know that a lot of our students don't have a traditional Thanksgiving, and I think many of you have been to our Thanksgiving feast, so we provide that for them. And don't know if you guys know, but once everybody is cleared out, our staff boxes lots and lots of food, and we make sure it goes home with many of our children. And our kids really look forward to that. Senior breakfast, that's a new thing we're starting this year. Matthew, can you quick evaluate?
Sure. We generally have a small ceremony at the Holiday Inn down the street, and we find that the students want to invite teachers, especially teachers that they've worked with over multiple years. Staffing-wise, we really can't do that. So what we've decided to do is have an in-house senior breakfast, and that way teachers that they knew in kindergarten or first grade can come and spend time with them in the name of celebrating their graduation without leaving us shorthanded on graduation day.
Remember, our goal is to have them out of there in 16 months. So if they got the kindergarten teacher coming for the 12th grade, no, I'm just kidding. But that's true, because again, our kids come in and out of our program. Beacon Day parents.
Okay, I'll talk about that too.
Okay.
So when I talk to my friends who are assistant principals and principals in other districts, I say, Jennifer and I, we work really, really hard from 7:30 to 4:30 every day. We really grind it out. But there really isn't a lot of things to do after school. We don't have after school clubs. We don't have athletics and things like that. And we don't have a PTO. And I was like, wait a minute, we don't have a PTO. Not only do we not have a PTO, we don't have any kind of parent involvement. So I decided to create Beacon Day Parents, where they can come in and they can see what we do and why we do things. Excuse me. Okay, so a lot of parents, they don't know how we operate. So it kind of confuses them that they don't get a phone call every day that their student is misbehaving, because a lot of that we handle in-house. So I like to bring them in, explain the point store, explain how we handle emergencies, and explain how we use PBIS and social learning. So Beacon Day Parents.
So I'm going to back that up a little bit, because we do have a lot of contact with our parents. It just happens to be the individual social workers. So to bring them together, I mean, our parents need some support as well. So to bring them together as a group, that's been helpful as well. Graduation ceremony, Matthew already touched on that. We do that once a year. We are graduating, as of right now, 10. That could change to 9, because we have one on. But we will do everything in our power to get that student to graduate, and that will be May 24th. Yes, May 24th. And you'll be getting an invitation. I think they're being printed tonight as we speak. The last thing is Carnival. Once a year we have a carnival for our kids, and that goes right along with social learning and PBIS, and our kids are right now starting to earn tickets for Carnival. They can be seen in the hallway picking up a piece of trash, and they get a ticket for Carnival. What we've seen in the past, though, is our higher step kids come out there with like 13 tickets, and our lower step kids come out there with 23 tickets, and you need tickets to do different activities. And we talked about it as a staff at our last PD about, we just expect those higher step kids to do what they're supposed to do. So we have to start catching them being good too. They don't have to be good every day, but they are, because they're higher step kids, and they have learned those social and emotional skills to be that successful. So we needed to tweak that a little bit this year, so our higher step kids can earn just as many tickets as our lower step kids. So with that, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to say I had the opportunity, Mr. Green, I guess about a year ago now, to tour the school, and got to take a look firsthand at the kind of the way that you do things, the way you operate the school store. But I was touched, probably equally as Ms. Mossop was, about the care in which you give those children and adults that are within your program. Specifically, Ms. Pastor and I were at the Thanksgiving celebration, and it isn't just feeding the kids. I mean, like you said, you send them home with everything, but the room is decorated by them. So I mean, it's start to finish, and it just warms your heart. deserve it. You know, some of these, that's their only Thanksgiving dinner they're going to get. So fantastic job there, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. And you know, we try to create a family situation at Beacon because a lot of our kids don't have adults that they can trust and people that they can trust. So again, starting out with group every day, that's a trust circle, and that's huge for our kids every day. Again, we talked about in our staff meeting the other day that this is a hard time for our kids because our kids, you know, although we're excited for the summer off, they are not excited. This is their safe haven. And so for them to come or to go home for that 8-9 weeks, that's really hard for them. So we're trying to get them through that. And I actually had a reentry with a student today who came off a suspension, and we were talking about how the summer's not going to be easy for him. And he's not looking forward to it, and he'll be a senior next year. So that was tough for me and the social worker. So thank you, I appreciate that.
Any further questions?
I think we can give Beacon staff again.
Oh, the projector.
Oh.
One more time. Thank you.
Okay, on to item H. We don't have any student government representatives. So I is committee reports, and the first one is policy.
We will continue the policy meeting with LUSC May 15th, I believe it is.
And finance?
Thank you. On April 25th, we had a Finance Committee meeting related to action items that were on there, or items in which were discussed. One was millage spend transparency on the website. There was an effort that was made for bar graphs of what was budgeted versus what was spent. The intention of the committee was redisclosed as it related to pie charts and what decisions were made as about what we were looking for that millage spend to be used on, so we had some clarity there. There was a carryover item as it related to substitute teachers, cost information, which will be on the meeting minutes that Dr. Pomponio had requested previously, some of which were given to us and others were given to reports, which I could share with the rest of the board as they would like, but I'd like to do some aggregations of some of the data there, so and share that in the meeting minutes itself. Third item that was talked about was conversations as relates to, we've been presented as a board a 5-year plan and trying to understand what the fiscal implications are of that 5-year plan as we continue to have that as a goal as we move forward, and seeing how we can incorporate the finances that have the implications of the finances into that 5-year plan. For some new business that we discussed was, which is the work item that was being brought to the board about the Reek Road property, which is our work item, and as the committee's decision or recommendation that yes, it was something that we would like the whole board to talk some more about. And then the last part was about the independent contractor audit as it relates to the EDGE staff employees and findings that Ms. McLaughlin had found as it relates to their pay, and specifically for coaches, teachers, and interventionists. And she had mentioned that we would probably be getting more information specifically related to that at the time in which we were going to talk about the New Year's budget. So for the corrections to the budget for those particular staff members would be made for the next year's school budget. So, and that was the meeting. Oh, one other thing, I'm sorry. The Finance Committee appointed me as the chair again. And our next meeting is going to be on May 23rd. So, and we didn't do any more meetings out from that as of yet.
Thank you. Our report. Anti-bullying.
We had to reschedule the Davidson parent meeting, so we're still looking for another date for that.
Okay. Is that group elected a chair?
Yes, unofficially, Rebecca.
Okay. reports. So finance report is first.
Well, I wasn't going to have a report, but I just want to follow up on Mr. Koopser's comment about the independent contractor status. As a CPA and working with the IRS for 25 years, there are a lot of points that the IRS looks at to make sure that you're classifying someone correctly as an independent contractor and employee. Over time, the district has paid certain positions under EduStaff or PESG, whatever our third-party contractor was, in part as money-saving efforts. But we really do need to correct that for a lot of reasons, including IRS law, Department of Labor law, and what is pretty close to what we may undergo is an ORS audit. If people are not classified correctly, not only would we have to correct that and pay retirement on those wages, we would have to pay penalty and interest. And certain positions, like coaches that are employees of the district, should be paid through the district, and some other positions as well. So I'm looking at rolling that into and correcting that during the 18-19 budget. So nothing has happened yet, but we've been reminded that the ORS particularly is going to be doing some reviews for independent contractor status. So we need to start making some corrections, and it's things I've been looking at over time. I just need time to make all the changes, and we do have an attorney opinion as well on that. So.
Mr. President.
Mr. Green.
Mr. McLaughlin, I'm trying to think this through as I'm hearing this. So EduStaff was created legally for non-school employees. So I know what a lot of school districts have done. And I'm assuming that that's what we have done, is we've paid contracted teachers through EduStaff, which is,
well,
we have. We are
not for teaching positions, though.
No, but for coaching positions.
For coaching, that's correct.
Which really is bypassing the ORS. That's the issue. Am I correct in that? And that's what we have to correct?
It's not following IRS, Department of Labor, or ORS rules.
Okay.
That's correct.
So that's where the correction
Right.
is going to have to come into play.
Right, yes.
I hear you.
Were contracts made, though? Were agreements and contracts made based on that happening?
Yes, but all our union contracts are expiring either June 30th or August 31st. So with those new contracts, we're rolling this in.
Okay.
So actually, it's the perfect time to go ahead and make the change.
Okay. Any further questions? All right.
That's
Thank
it.
you very much.
I'll talk much more later. So.
Okay. Curriculum report.
All right, we are in our second half of the testing window. Our K-2 students are finishing up their early literacy and mathematics testing, and grades 3, 4, 6, and 7 continue on with their M-STEP. We actually have had some students already getting their SAT and PSAT scores back already, which I believe is much faster than it was last year, so that's exciting. We don't have district scores. I already peeked, and we don't have any yet. I just wanted to take a moment and share some information with you on Open Educational Resources, or OER. Open Educational Resources are teaching, learning, and research resources that reside in the public domain or have been released under an intellectual property license that permits their free use and repurposing by others. OER includes full courses, course materials, modules, textbooks, streaming videos, tests, software, and other tools, materials, or techniques used to support access to knowledge. So I became super interested in this. I heard from 2 school districts that have made the move to 100% all OER. So all of their curriculum materials are all open educational resources. So I went to a few more conferences and different breakout sessions that they've spoke about OER and did a little research, and it's actually like a national movement. If you look up #GoOpenMichigan, Michigan is one of the states that are participating in this initiative. Pretty exciting. Through the Go Open initiative, the U.S. Department of Ed supports states, districts, and educators using openly licensed educational materials to transform teaching and learning. Open educational resources give educators the ability to adapt instructional resources to the individual needs of their students to ensure that resources are up to date and to ensure that the cost is not a barrier to accessing high-quality, standards-aligned resources. So not only was this just a topic that was really interesting to me for some time now, it became really apparent that it's not just interesting, but very necessary. As I just got back, one of the bids for our science curriculum materials, so curriculum and materials, their bid was over $300,000. And so I said, oh boy. So it is definitely my goal, but now maybe a little bit sooner than I had anticipated, to really start exploring some OER options for curriculum, and shifting our philosophy of maybe purchasing the hard copies of textbooks to some mobile devices, and moving in the direction of a one-to-one learning environment. So I'm looking at those options as we speak because of, like I said, what the most recent bid came in, and looking at investing some of our curricular funds rather than textbooks, but in mobile devices, and investing then in the time for the teachers to plan and collaborate, create, curate, and share some of their own OER if they've created their own as well. That's all I have.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
So the state superintendent, Mr. Brian Winston, passed away last night following a battle with cancer. So our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. So we were just informed today that beginning tomorrow, the northeast corner of McCann in Leroy will be under construction. So this construction will last only 8 to 10 days, but it does depend on the weather. So the good news is that Leroy reopened today. The bad news is if you come off of Eureka down McCann, you will not be able to get to the high school or Allen Elementary. So there'll be a bottleneck there. It begins tomorrow. They literally just told me tonight. We did send this information out via email. It was supposed to go out by Mr. Lyons and Mr. Kennedy, so both those buildings should have received that information tonight. The Michigan High School Athletic Association contacted Mr. Kukowski and invited Southgate to host the quarterfinal games for Division III baseball and softball on Saturday, June 12th in 2018. So I just want to say thanks, because this is really part of in part to the great condition of these fields and facilities after all the bond work. So it's an honor to host this, and so we've accepted that. Asher forgot to mention that there will be a blood drive this Thursday, May 10th at Asher from 9 to 3, and we'd like to invite members of the community or other staff members to sign up to donate, and you can go ahead and call Asher at 246-4633 to sign up to donate. So this is Teacher Appreciation Week, and we switch it to Staff Appreciation because we want to recognize all the little things that our staff do to make a difference for our students on a daily basis. And we really do want all staff to contribute to making Southgate the best choice for students and parents. And it really does take a village, so happy Staff Appreciation Week.
Thank you very much. Okay, one more try at citizens' comments. Anybody would like to speak tonight? No? Okay. Brings us to the consent agenda, which consists of April 24th, 2018 board meeting minutes and disbursements for April 2018.
I'd like to make a motion to to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, I have a motion for the consent agenda. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Koopser. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the consent agenda is approved. And action item, the first one is award of transportation RFP.
So I provided in your board packets the last pieces of information to help you make your decision this evening, and I'd like to go over that. In summary, for the transportation services bid process, we issued an RFP to 7 companies on February 6, 2018, received responses from 2 companies, and interviewed the 2 companies on March 26, 2018. Presentations were made to the Board of Education on April 24th of 2018. Below, I also provided pricing summaries for the 2 bids. You were provided with the pricing information at the last meeting. However, I didn't get the opportunity to really break the information down for the board. In the original RFP, we requested a bid for a 3-year contract. Trinity Transportation provided that information, Dean Transportation provided a 5-year bid without all the necessary detail. So the selection committee at that time made the decision that we would go back to both companies and get both sets of comparable information. So we went back to Trinity and asked them to provide a 5-year bid by year, and then asked Dean to provide a breakdown by year, which would include a 3-year bid along with the 5-year bid. So for a 3-year contract, the Trinity Transportation is lower over the 3 years by $371,000, with an average lower bid of about $123,000. For the 5-year contracts, Trinity is lower by a total of $458,370, and they maintain their cost for year 3. When they gave us a 5-year price, they maintain that same price for years 4 and 5. They guaranteed no increase in years 4 and 5. And I also provided some of the detail information. Not all of it's here, almost all of it's in the actual bids, but just to compare some of the routing information. They actually are pretty close in a lot of areas. However, the difference with the miles, because of where they would be coming from, and also in the area of transportation, and to some extent in special education, would be the reason for the increased price. Also for athletics, Trinity Transportation quoted us a 2-hour minimum, in many cases with Dean it would be a 4-hour minimum. I also did reference checks for both companies. They were, for Dean Transportation, they were all very positive. For Trinity Transportation, a majority of the comments and feedback was positive. There were some issues noted with the owner's sale of company stock to National Express, which was discussed at the last meeting. For Trinity, the districts have been satisfied with their corrective actions which have been made in a timely manner for the districts that I spoke with. Southgate Schools has experienced serious issues and concerns in the last year with Trinity under both athletics and special education, and those were shared with you at the last meeting, and Dr. Pomponio was also at a meeting with Trinity. Changes have been made in the last month. The one noted difference between the two companies is their sedan services. Our needs have increased significantly during the 2017-18 year. I look at the costs, and there's really no way to know for sure what our costs will be, because when we provided this information for the RFP, it was really before it was in the winter, early winter, before or just as our services were expanding exponentially. So they have, Trinity provides a rate based on a pickup fee and an amount per miles, and Dean has an estimated amount per day. Trinity Transportation does have their own sedan fleet. Dean Transportation subcontracts out with Metro cars. So based on the bids received, the information in Plant Moran's transportation sourcing analysis, which you were provided with at the last meeting, interviews, and the preceding information, my recommendation is that the board award Trinity Transportation the transportation services contract effective July 1st, 2018 for a 3-year period. This would also be contingent on successful contract negotiations and continued progress on the issues discussed previously. And also included in your packets was a letter from Plant Moran, which helped us with this process, providing the same recommendation.
Okay.
Is there any
Any questions from Mr. McLaughlin? Mr. Estheimer.
Thank you. I have a few questions here. I'm not sure if
and Amy Sassina from Plant Moran is also here in case there's any questions.
So I do have some questions regarding the report that you submitted. Would you mind coming up here so you can speak in the microphone? I appreciate that. Thank you. So based on the assumptions the assumption sheet. Why did the miles differ between the two RFPs? Is that just basically how they calculate? I mean, they're given the same data.
Yes, so we asked the vendors, for the most part, they're estimating, different routes. We provided them a specific number of miles that is in the current year, and they both just extrapolated, what it would be in the coming years. And so they just used different assumptions. Not that they're gonna charge you differently based on the miles, that was just, we asked them to provide what their assumptions were, so we understood.
Okay. And when you're looking at the summary pricing, the costs I noticed go up like in 2 or 3. Is that just anticipated like fuel costs and that, drivers' pay increases?
Yeah, it's
that
just
type of
kind of
thing?
the cost of living increase and.
Okay,
yeah,
that's what I
That's very
thought.
typical to see.
Also, Dean Transportation would be purchasing an additional fleet to cover our contract.
And am I also to assume that the summary is with the special education, the sedans, the field trips, and all that, and then the regular means pricing without those things and those additional costs?
Yeah, yep, and the summary, keep in mind that the field trips are very much an estimate.
Okay.
Because they change year to year, and as Teresa mentioned earlier, the sedans are also an estimate.
And finally, just for the board here, I know that we received one of the representatives from Beacon came and spoke at the last meeting, and I know there was issues with the service at Trinity, but I just am wrestling with kind of what's the right thing to do. When you look, I'm staring at what our vision statement is and our mission statement, but when we take a look, I just don't know how we can afford an extra, $371,000 currently right now using that 3-year plan in the summary pricing. We just got information a few meetings ago about losing 70 students and that possible, that could be up to $260,000. So, with a extra $520,000 hole in the budget, I just wrestle with what's right and what we can afford, and those are constantly what we always have to wrestle with on this board. So I'm interested to hear what any other board members' response is to those and how they came to their decisions. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment about the issues that we've had. When I contacted other districts that use Trinity, I was very happy to hear that they have not had problems. Not the extent that we had. We're working with them to correct the issues, and I will have, my plan either way is to have follow-up discussions with Trinity as to why I'm getting the feedback on them, positive feedback that I may not necessarily be able to do right now if I was called. But that gave me some confidence that the issues that we're struggling with, for whatever reason, that we can move forward in a positive manner.
Do you have a nice follow-up, Ms. Ressler?
Really quickly, I think that when we spoke too, you had mentioned that you also reached out to Trenton regarding Dean
and one other district.
And they also had very good reviews as well, right?
They had nothing but positive reviews.
Thank you.
In both districts.
Cooper.
Thank you. Just want to make sure I'm understanding what we're approving today. You said it's a 3-year contract, but we have a 5-year contract pricing on there?
Well, we have both a 3-year and a 5-year pricing.
Mm-hmm.
My recommendation with Trinity is to go for a 3-year contract, even though I recognize the great value to having the 5-year contract price and having the years 4 and 5 not have any increase over year 3. But given the issues and concerns that we are having at this time, I was not comfortable locking us in for 5 years. We would typically, with any contract, we would have the option, if we had a 3-year contract, to renew for 2 additional years, 1 year at a time, if things are going well. And that doesn't guarantee a price, though. But I do have concerns about locking into 5 years, given the things that we're still working on with them.
So you're saying that you would structure the contract without a guaranteed price for year 4 and 5 with a 3+1+1 with spelled out metrics around levels of service within the contract?
It would just
guarantee price, so the 5-year contract price doesn't matter. So
that again?
So if I heard you right, you said we're talking about a 3-year contract.
Right.
But you'd structure the contract as a 3+1+1.
With options to
extensions,
renew, that's how we
but
always
without price
structure it.
guarantees.
Without price, right, so then they would give us a new price structure for, if we want to do 2 years at one time, or we want to do 1 year at a time, they would give us the price recommendation at that time, if we don't do the 5-year contract.
Okay, so we're approving a 3+1+1 or a 3+2, not just a 3-year
Well, you're
contract.
approving a 3-year contract. We don't have to follow the options to renew.
Okay.
We could be at the end of 3 years, and we could decide we're going to put this out for bid again.
Okay.
But those are terms that will be in the option to have that would be in the contract.
If it's necessary, it depends on the will of the board itself. I know that Dr. Pomponi had mentioned last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, with the option if Dean would entertain the idea of hiring the current staff that would be for Trinity as drivers. If for some reason I'd ask for the support from the board, that there be a provision within the contract that allowed for that, if we found that we voted to award the contract to Dean, and
That's
that
correct.
provision could be put in that contract
be.
itself.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know, I guess I'd have to ask the support of the board to give that direction.
When we get to the board discussion, we can work on that.
All right.
In just a second. Dr. Pomponio.
Okay, I have a question about the fleet. You said they would have to purchase a new fleet if they took on our contract for, I think it was Dean, did you say?
That's correct. So right now, we do have a fairly new fleet with Trinity, but they're already in the cycle of replacing certain ones each year, where Dean would have to, my understanding is that it would be a whole new fleet, whatever the buses that we need.
Okay, because my understanding was 500 was in the fleet of Trinity and 1,600 was in the fleet of Dean. That was the figures that we were given. So, I was looking at that, thinking that, they would cover anything that we had over and above, if we needed extra buses. So that figure was thrown out there. So I don't know.
Oh, I'm not
1,600 buses in their fleet for Dean. Is that
So
what?
you're not going to pay any additional for the new buses?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, this is a big decision.
Oh, the fleet that they currently have.
Yeah, what they currently
Right, so
have.
all of them are in service at this time.
Oh,
So,
okay. And the other question I have for you is, with our current contract with Trinity, have we gone over budget with that contract where we had to pay more for whatever reason?
it's been within the contract or just CPI increases, so. No, we haven't. And actually, from our original contract, they had a 4-hour minimum for athletics, and they reduced it to 2-hour minimum 2 years ago, and have continued with that, and are proposing to continue that with the new contract. So there have been areas where they have reduced prices, and also given us transportation at no cost.
Okay.
When there's been an emergency need, sometimes they've charged us, sometimes they haven't. One example was last year with our spring sports. We needed a third shuttle. We didn't realize there was an issue with the time, and they made it work with no additional charge.
Okay, thank you. And just to kind of piggyback off of Jason, one of the things that we did add into the contract, I believe, when we first outsourced, was that not only do we pick up the Southgate employees, but that we pay them if they can be paid at their rate that they currently are holding,
Right.
even though they said they do the or seniority rate, but just to make sure that they're
Right,
compensated the same.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Freitas.
Last week, Dean had mentioned that there could be some cost savings with combining some of the routes with another district. Is that still possible, or?
It's definitely possible. It's something that for one thing, they had a hard time quantifying it ahead of time. And because it wasn't part of the original bid, we couldn't consider a quantified cost in the award. But it's definitely something that they said, if awarded, they're going to look to do this as well as find additional potential cost savings. We don't have a way of knowing
He wants you to talk into the microphone, so, sorry.
Sorry. We don't have a way of knowing if, what those cost savings would be.
Okay. And along the lines with Mr. Estheimer, it's obviously cheaper to go with Trinity, but when I figured it out, it was $687.10 more a day. Are students worth that? And then if you extrapolate to the 5-year contract, it's $509.70 a day for the cost. So I know when we don't have a lot of money, it's hard to justify it, but it's for the children. So that's where I'm struggling with too.
Thank you. Ms. Mossel.
Dr. Pomponio actually asked my first question, and then Neil asked my second question. So I believe that my follow-up would be for Mr. Estheimer in the discussion, but that 509 a day with the difference in the presentation, the mission, the problems that we've had, and my concern is I'm hearing that, I know the cost, but when finance is saying that you're concerned to go with because of your concerns, you're so concerned that you won't make a 5-year is that, and you're basing it based on our given issues. So that's a little difficult to it kind of makes it have that feel that we're trying to make the money work even though we are still having issues with it, and that's a little difficult. But
Any other questions? Mr. Green?
So I think everybody in this board, we've struggled with this here, and I'm going to piggyback on it, is that I guess my question would be, with the problems we had with Trinity in the past, and I know they've been rectified, but just within the last month, my concern right off the bat would be, it's just been in the last month, but there's been these concerns longer than a month. So is this something that we're just trying to tell you what you want to hear in the last month because our contract is up for bid again? Are there going to be, and I don't need to get into all contract negotiations, I'm not asking that per se, but just in generality, I know the question or the point was brought up 2 weeks ago here, if a kid is left behind, that's very disturbing, or this and that, is there going to be stipulations in the new contract that we're going to be reimbursed for things like that? Not that the price should be on a child who's left behind by any means, but that still is a concern of getting charged for something when you're not holding your end of the bargain. That would be, a concern of mine, one concern.
Right. Based on my discussions with the founder of Trinity Transportation, based on my conversations with other districts, I really felt it's something's not right here, and I think it's fixable. And also, yes, in the new proposed contract language, there are provisions for liquidating damages.
Mr. President?
Mr. Green?
My next question or next statement would be a concern with the fact of, correct me on this, the students are first, but I also feel like in this type of setting, what we've heard from alternative ed, adult programs, children with needs, that structure also is very important, and they know these bus drivers, and they're comfortable with these bus drivers, and these are people that have worked in our school district before it was outsourced. If we go the other way into Dean, and maybe, I don't know who can answer this question, they've agreed to interview the current bus drivers, but are they guaranteed to hire the current bus drivers, or are they just giving us the courtesy of interviewing them? And if they're not going to take our bus drivers these kids are comfortable with, I think that is a grave concern of mine for their structure. So I would like to know if somebody could address that.
My understanding is that they would give first preference to the current bus drivers at Trinity if they chose to move to Dean, and it would also be based on district recommendation, and certainly consistency with our children is very important. So.
And I'll piggyback on that. It really is to Dean's advantage to hire the current bus drivers. They know the students, they know the routes. They avoid having to go out and find new bus drivers. And right now, I'm sure you all hear all districts everywhere are having a hard time finding bus drivers. And so
it's really to their advantage, so there's no reason why they wouldn't, unless there's a bus driver that the district wouldn't recommend, or if there's, you know, an issue with a driving record that was overlooked when Trinity hired them. I think unless there's a glaring reason, I don't see why they wouldn't. So it's not an absolute guarantee, but it'd be silly for them not to.
Mr. President, I'd like to make one statement, if you don't mind. I'm sorry.
This is a question for staff, that's okay, not a discussion for the board, that's fine.
It's not a discussion for the board, it's my personal statement of my feeling on this. Mr. Estheimer asked what the feelings would be. I guess the other thing for my opinion also is that a community effort of a company that's local and I know has done things within this community and within our own Southgate students, speaking as somebody who's had someone who's paralyzed in their life, knowing what they did for a student and stuff, that's a pretty big deal to me also. So I struggle with this also as we get into more discussion and like to hear what everybody else has to say.
Any other questions for staff? I have one. So Teresa, you have concerns about years 4 and 5 about their service, but not about 1, 2, and 3?
Well, I do. I have a concern about locking the district into a 5-year contract right now, at this point in time.
And the purpose of that is being not the price, but the potential for
the
failure of
concerns,
service.
although we're moving in the right direction, we're still resolving things. And just like, you know, I want consistency for the children with the bus drivers. I want consistency in the operations and the services that Trinity is providing. I think it's very probable that that will happen, and I can't guarantee, but I don't know that I would be comfortable with a 5, even though the pricing, it's can't beat that. But it's not, you know, as you said, it's not all about pricing, and because of that, my recommendation is I don't think I'd be willing to do that, but it's the board's decision.
And you said that they have started acting better or being better actors. Is that, what's the timing of that? Is that coincide with the RFP, or is that prior to the RFP? Since the RFP? How does that relate?
Honestly, it seemed like they stepped things up after the interview process.
Mr. President?
Ms. Massam.
I do have one question, and perhaps for both of you, because I think I'm a little confused. So, Dean's reputation is above reproach. You both agree on that. Every question that has been asked to Plant Moran regarding Dean has been positive affirmation of the question and that's been asked. Dean has agreed to have preference of our staff. Their pay rates were higher. The buses would be new for the district. So I'm wondering, and also when we got their the bids and they had their presentation, all of the reference letters from Trinity were 5 years old or more. So why are both recommendation letters to go? Is it a fiscal? Are you recommending based on fiscal need only, and is that what the nature of this process was?
So I think it's based on both. So it's based on fiscal need. It's based on the references. You know, all the references that were checked were positive, with the exception of a few issues when the stock was purchased, but that they were correcting them. And so, I mean, in talking with Teresa, she heard mostly glowing reviews of Trinity as well. So it was just, it seems to be that there was a little bit of a hiccup with the turnover. So we were trying to be fiscally responsible while at the same time considering the students.
Thank you. Well, and I guess this might be to Ms. Pastor, and you might not know the history or not, being new to your role. As it relates to a history to Trinity as our district bringing up issues over the last year, do we know how often we were doing that? Do we have any idea? It sounds, what we're alluding to up here, it sounds like, is that after they had the interview, they cleaned up their act on how they were taking care of our students. The question that I have is that when we told them about it in maybe September, maybe in October, did they ignore it? Did they not? Do we have a history at all of understanding how many times or how many, was there notification made to Trinity about the issues that we were experiencing?
So
Do
my,
you know?
my understanding from both Mr. Pinkowski and Ms. Thomas was that we've had ongoing issues since they sold the stock. So that was approximately a year ago, in April of 2017 is my understanding. And so things, the founders sort of took the eye off the ball, they were too big. They didn't pay attention to the service. We had big issues since I've taken over in January. Ms. Thomas and I met with someone in February. Things continued to spiral down. When they did the interview process, somebody paid attention.
Thank you for answering.
Okay. All right, we'll bring the discussion back up to the table. So right now, we have a recommendation from staff. And at least for the purposes of having some discussion, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion for purpose of discussion.
Support.
Well, it needs to. You need
To
to
support the staff recommendation.
Support the staff recommendation, which is a motion to award Trinity Transportation the contract for transportation services for a period of 3 years effective July 1st, 2018. Is that stated properly?
Thank you.
Okay. And you supported that, Dr. Pomponio? Okay. Is there any discussion on this? Dr. Pomponio?
First of all, I want to say that absolutely, positively, students come first, regardless of any penny that we save, because being a parent in the district as well, we look at the figures and we can talk about all the other districts and what the recommendations are, but I've been in the community with the parents and people who complained over the past couple of years about the issues that Trinity's had. So then with the meeting with the Trinity and the special ed director and the athletic director, it gave me even more reason to stop and say what is going on with this company, and just to remind the audience of the complaints that were only partial complaints over the past couple of years. Drivers left the homeless students, didn't pick up, and if we have a special ed director who is just absolutely, appalled at the way the service has been, I have to listen to that, and also with the athletic director, because they're the ones who are have the most pickup drop-offs, the sports, and those are the most important things to me and what I've seen in the community. And I listen to the parents too. So some of the complaints, and I've seen and witnessed myself as a parent, is the behavior of the drivers over at Davidson who would argue with the parents. I've seen that over and over. So that had an impact on me, and I was hoping that it would go away and, try to be objective as I could. But then when over and over again it wasn't being resolved, and then to hear that there was consistent issues with nothing being resolved at all or in a timely manner, and also the way the behavior is with the students, giving the students paperwork and things like that. And also a parent was hit by one of the bus drivers. And when you have a problem or an issue like that, as big as that, and you say you're going to take care of it because they were at fault, they didn't resolve it within a timely manner. This parent actually 2 months later said, forget it. They kept calling. So where is that process? Why didn't that process get fixed for this? And other complaints from parents who have track and other athletic students, the drivers are lost. And I've heard this numerous times, or just the way the complaints were from me, from the parents and the teachers, and this last meeting and what I've experienced. Absolutely, students are first. I can't say it enough. And with these figures, with the cost and the differences, I'm not even going to consider the price difference at this point, because there's too much over a period of time that didn't get resolved in a timely manner. And just at the 11th hour, of course, when you're up for a new bid or a new contract, that's when all the changes are occurring. Okay, that's all I have to say on that one.
Thank you. Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to be devil's advocate here, and just food for thought. We're making assumptions also that we're not going to have problems with Dean. Now, Trinity, we have had problems. That's well documented, but we also have some, or a lot, it sounds like, positive reviews from other places. For whatever reason, just because somebody treats one person or one thing one way, not another, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to treat us the same way. So although we have positive reviews from Dean everywhere, doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to encounter some of the same problems. Maybe not the problems, with all due respect, that Dr. Pomponio said, which I respect, but I mean, we can't be 100% sure we're going to get the perfect service from Dean either. And the other thing is, I do think that a lot of our drivers are for special needs students and this and that. I'm going to come back to what I feel about, just my personal feeling, that the consistency for these children is paramount. If these problems can be solved, that just because we're assuming that Trinity's telling us some things, and if we're going to ridicule them, we can also, if we're being fair, make the assumption that Dean is giving preference to our drivers, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to follow through, and with all due respect, whether it's their advantage or not, still doesn't mean that they're going to hire those drivers, which I think is very important to the children, of the consistency. So, you know, I struggle with this, but I can't sit there and say that I believe uninhibitedly for the cost and this and that Dean would be so much better than Trinity, in my opinion.
Thank you. Any other comments? No?
Sorry. So my question is related to giving the direction to the board, or the board direction to, that's a provision that will be made if it is found that Dean is the awarded contractor. We as a board can give that direction, or?
I'm sorry,
or is that
which
what
part?
was?
To be in the motion.
As related for the drivers getting preferential. Can we make that as a provision? We can give the direction to the district when they structure their contract?
I mean, we can amend
to
the
include
motion to
that?
say that. I think it goes without saying that they're going to do that anyway.
I just want to make sure that
it doesn't bind them to actually hiring anybody, which I don't know how you could bind a company to hiring.
I'm not saying that's binding. I'm saying that in the contract that it's a provision in there and it's a direction of the board given to the
Is that
district.
something
It
that's
would have
already
been
part of it?
anyways.
If it's already part of it, great. I just want to make sure it was
That's
clear.
already part of it?
Yes.
If it was board direction, that's all.
That's already part of it. I'll go ahead and give my comments on this. I do struggle with this because I think we have a huge responsibility for fiscal responsibility. We also have a tremendous responsibility to the students. And I mean, I can buy a used car that'll work sometimes, and it'll be cheaper than a new car that'll work most of the time. Not guaranteed, as Mr. Green pointed out. There's no guarantee with it, but I'm going to pay more for the new car. But how much money and time am I going to spend chasing the used car? How much time has been spent by administration chasing Trinity around? How much will be spent chasing Trinity around to make sure they comply? I have to take that in. I have a concern about that. It may be lower up front, but it may cost us more in the end if we have Ms. Thomas chasing people around, Mr. Pinkowski chasing people around, Ms. McLaughlin chasing people around, Ms. Pastor chasing people around. Their time costs money, and it could be spent doing something else, but unfortunately over the last at least 4 months for Ms. Pastor, it's been spent chasing around a company to do what they're supposed to do. And that's very concerning to me, that we're talking back to them. So I guess that's where I'm gonna leave my comments on it. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and call the question on the motion, which is to award Trinity Transportation the contract for transportation services for a period of 3 years effective July 1st, 2018. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, I believe, Mr. Green, one vote for the yeses, is that correct? Do we have one vote?
They need to do.
Roll call.
They need to do.
We just need to
yes.
know who voted. We don't have to roll call it.
I don't know.
We had,
No, yes, you do.
Roll call.
Okay.
okay, do a roll
Mr.
call.
Restheimer?
No.
Mr. Freitas?
No.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Koopser?
No.
Ms. Mossop?
No.
Dr. Pomponio?
No.
Mr. Craig?
No. Okay, that motion fails. Do we have another motion forthcoming?
Should we make a motion to approve?
We could make a motion to approve with Dean, and then we would have to specify the time frame.
Okay. Do you have it?
This is, you could fill it in here if you'd like.
Okay.
Just instead of here. And this would be the question.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to award Dean Transportation the contract for transportation services for a period of 3 years. Is it 3 or 5?
That's our question is.
3 or 5 years, effective July 1st, 2018.
You have to pick.
It's different pricing structure
Yeah,
for
we have to
each.
pick one or the other.
Right,
We don't have to pick.
Yes.
We can pick either or, so.
So it's a new company for the district. Do you want the company for 5 years, or would you like the company for 3 years?
3.
That was my question, is it related to the contract structure of a 3+2 or 3+1+1? Which is if you're trying to lock the price,
Keep the option, like the 3.
you'd have to,
Yeah.
but
But
to
that
lock the
option
price,
doesn't
you'd have to
guarantee
make
the
it a
price
5-year
that they've given
contract.
right now.
Okay. We're
So-
going to go with 3. I'm going to make a motion for the 3. The period of 3 years, effective July 1st, 2018. That's 3.
Okay, I have a motion for Dean Transportation for 3 years. Is there support?
Support? Oh, I'm sorry. I made the motion.
Support.
Support by Mr. Koopser. Okay, any discussion on this?
Mr. President,
Mr. Green?
I will go on record saying I think we're making some serious assumptions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? No? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
I'm pretty sure we can do this with a simple show of hands to who voted no.
I think it's
I'm pretty
gotta-
sure that's the
I think it's
bottom.
got to be in the minutes with a roll call.
Oh, please
Would
do
you
a
like a roll call? Okay. Mr. Estheimer?
This one was, yes.
This is for Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Freitas?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
No.
Mr. Koopser?
Yes.
Ms. Mossop?
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes. Okay. Motion is approved. Moves us on to action item number 2, which is the HR update.
So you're being asked to approve the HR report as a separate action item this board meeting because it contains layoff information. Due to the early severance plan opportunity, we were able to minimize the layoffs. We were conservative with staffing and looked at class size numbers and we will look at class size numbers after the first Friday, September 7th in 2018, to determine what changes might be needed. You will see the names of the laid-off teachers on the HR report. Those names and their respective positions are considered confidential. They will receive their notice on Wednesday. Building administrators will deliver the letter personally.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the HR update.
Support.
Okay, just to clarify the motion, it's a motion to approve the 5/8/18 Human Resources Report that includes the layoff of one current full-time teacher for the 2018-19 school year. Is that clarified?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And supported by Mr. Green? Okay. Okay, is there any comments or questions on this? Dr. Pomponio?
I just want to acknowledge my respect for Mr. Tashi. Our family has known him for since 28 years ago. My brother was an all-star athlete here at Southgate, and he also holds Mr. Tashi in high regard and respect. Coach Tashi has been my brother's favorite coach, with many great memories along with Coach Kell. It's been my honor to work with Mr. Tashi since I've been on board, and you will always be remembered as a great mentor for many students. I wish you all the best in your retirement. Thank you, Coach Tashi.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything further? Okay, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Okay, and the third one is the Wayne Risa preliminary budget.
So you're being asked to approve the 2018-19 Wayne Risa budget, and just to remind you that this is required by the ISD for every school member district in Wayne County in order for them to move forward with their fiscal year. So you'd need to choose the either supported or disapproved, and if we have any reasons, we need to tell them those.
Okay. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, no questions for staff. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President.
Mr. Green.
Whereas this board received the Wayne Risa General Fund operating budget on or before May 1st, 2018, and whereas in accordance with Section 380.624 of the revised school code, this board must now adopt a resolution expressing its support or disapproval of the proposed Wayne Risa budget and must submit to the Wayne Risa board any specific objections and/or proposed changes the board may have to the budget prior to June 1st, 2018. Therefore, be it resolved that the Wayne Risa General Fund operating budget for the 2018-19 school year be supported, and that the Secretary of this board is hereby directed to submit a copy of this resolution to the Secretary of Wayne Risa Board of Education along with comments.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Estheimer. Any discussion? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes 7-0. Any employee representatives who would like to speak tonight? Okay, information announcements from the board.
Just quickly, I don't have a big packet today, but today is Teacher Appreciation Day, as you know, so thank you to all our teachers. We appreciate you. And we especially appreciate those retirees that we just got in our packet today, and that we've all gotten these emails going around with all these great celebrations of their time in our district. So thank you very much, and happy retirement to you folks. That is all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Pomponio.
I just want to say also thank you to all the teachers. You're very much appreciated. And the second thing I have is Brian Weston was a friend of mine. I didn't realize he passed, and I worked with him in Dearborn, so my sympathies go out to his family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Green.
I'd like to wish all my fellow teachers, Mr. Freitas, a happy Teachers Week or Appreciation Week or whatever. I don't know what it's called, to be honest with you. Just a very brief announcement that Grogan is having their talent show tomorrow at 6:30 at the Anderson Auditorium. So for all the Grogan parents, if your children are involved or even if they're not, it would be nice to see a full house for the youngsters as they perform tomorrow evening. Thank you very much. I hope everybody has a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Anyone else?
Mr. President?
Ms. Mossop.
I would just like to say for all of the seniors who are attending prom this coming Friday, I hope that you have an excellent time, and please be very safe and cautious, and we can't wait to see all of your pictures.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to our work item, which is just one for the Reek Road property. I assume you're presenting this to us, Ms. McCoy.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is being brought to, it's a discussion item to the full board based on recommendation by the same information, for the most part, being brought to the Finance Committee. So it's been a little while since we talked about the Reek Road property. For those of you who were not on the board at the time, we had an offer to purchase the property in early 2015 for purposes of building a nursing home facility on that property to replace the current Southgate Manor that's on Trenton Road. For a variety of reasons, the purchaser pulled out of that agreement. At that time, the property was listed for a year from October of 2015 to October of 2016. We also had an issue when we had the offer from the purchaser realized that we did not have full title to the entire 11.6 acres. During that time, we did rectify that situation, and we do have title to the full property, but no activity was done at the and so the property hasn't been listed. And at that time, the board shared their wish that they would like to use the property for residential development. Right before Christmas, I was contacted by Van Isley Real Estate because they are a company that's been in business for over 30 years. They specialize in finding properties for purchasers. They had someone who was interested in the Reek Road property for residential development. So I explained to him our process, and then they said they would get back with me. They didn't for a while. I touched base with them. They said, yes, it was still an ongoing interest, but they were working on things. So, and then about a month ago, I received another call from them, and they had another buyer who was interested for a nursing home facility. I told them at the time that that was not in line with the board's goals. And then they also talked about if we would be interested in listing the property with them. So that's when I decided it was the proper time to go to the Finance Committee with the information and make sure that it's still the board's goals, that their priority for that property is residential development. And if you wanted to consider listing the property with this real estate broker who has, it's not just a real estate broker. The research that I did in talking to them, they specialize in finding properties for developers. And if you wanted to possibly proceed with listing the property at this time.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to be rude. I was trying to save myself from asking the question how this was zoned. And
it is zoned residential.
Mr. Craig pointed that out to me, so I'm sorry for that.
Okay.
Do we need to list this property?
I'm sorry?
I thought they had a purchaser. So
well, I haven't asked specifics about this purchaser. It seems, I don't know what's going on with this purchaser. They say they're still interested, but that's kind of my concern. If we list it and all of a sudden this purchaser decides. That does concern me a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of that's the reason we don't have it listed right now, is because it wasn't doing anything for us, and all we're going to do is pay a commission.
Right. For that, yes, and I don't, it's, the timing of that request does bother me some, but I felt it was appropriate to bring this information to the board and see if the boards just wanted to leave things as they are right now, or if you wanted to do something different.
From what I'm hearing, it's kind of two different things you're asking. One is the direction of the board that the property is that the intent of the board that it only would be used for a residential development. And that's kind of question number one. Right. And then the other question is, okay, if we were approached by, or there's a group, would we want either to list it or potentially entertain the idea of a bid or something like that.
Well, so basically, if you would like to use this real estate broker to list the property, there's no guarantee with this supposed potential buyer that now it's 5 months since the addition. I am not quite sure what's going on. I don't think I'm at a level where they have any obligation to tell me what's going on. So, but the offer was made. They did provide some information, some comparables for the property. The last time we had it listed, it was at $224,900. They feel that's still an appropriate price, and they just gave some samples of how they would market the property, just so that you had some information about the company.
Thank you. Oh. Well, okay. I guess I'm going to make a kind of a statement, and that I have concerns about listing it. The property is for sale.
Right. Well, nobody knows it, yeah.
Well, they do. Yeah. Anybody who's interested in developing a piece of property knows that property exists, and that it is for sale and that it's owned by the district. It's not a secret. It's just going to go on somebody's list. It's going to sit on their list, and then they're going to take advantage of things that are happening right now. I know, I do know that an offer was made to the church that bought our property from Corman for the back piece of property, which I had hoped to keep, but didn't happen. They want to turn it into residential development. Church turned them down, said no, thank you. The offer was equal to what they paid us for the whole property. So, things are turning around right now in residential development, and I assume if they don't have somebody on board right now, that they will very soon. And I guess my take on it would be to keep sitting back and waiting for somebody to come to us with an offer, not list it and pay somebody vacant property. What's the percentage that we pay on vacant property for a commission? Is that 10%? I know it's 6% on, it's 6 on typical residential, 6%. Generally on vacant property, you'll see it closer to like 10. So we're gonna be paying somebody a 10% commission for buying a piece of property that they already wanna probably have somebody on the line to buy. But I know that residential development is coming. There are not very many pieces of property in Southgate, if you wanna build a house, that you could do that on right now. That would be my take on it. Thanks.
Another point is, we talked about in the Finance Committee, is that we don't pay property taxes, for those who were not in that discussion, so there's not much of a cost to the district itself as it relates to keeping that and waiting for someone if they have a proposal to.
I don't have the exact amount for the insurance, but based on the amount of insurance per building that I've had to get, the insurance is relatively small, and it's the upkeep of mowing that property. I don't know that they do it every week, but they do keep it up.
a little part of it gets done every week.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just wanted to bring the questions to the board.
Okay. I don't know if that's giving you direction.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hang on.
I do have one point on what you had said, Mr. President. We did have this happen. This could be a very clever tactic to drum up business for the real estate company. We did have this happen once before, and it didn't go anywhere. So it was kind of like more of a dangling carrot than a low-hanging fruit. So
I got a hot offer, just sign on the line.
yeah. So I mean that's just how I feel about it right now. If we were to pass on it and they were really had someone and had a great deal, I'm sure that they would approach again with a follow-up.
Yeah, most of the pieces of property this size in the city are owned by the city or us. So I wouldn't say it's exclusive, but it's very limited. If you want to do more than a one-off development, you're going to need to come and talk to us or the city. So I guess that's where I would leave it. If anybody else has any other?
I would just want to sit. I don't want to list it either.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't want
Very much.
Okay.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Support. Motion to support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.